Okay, so in the world of enterprise data, there's a quiet revolution happening. And it's all about moving away from that chaotic, super expensive scramble for information when a legal case pops up, and moving towards a new model of intelligent control. This isn't just some IT upgrade anymore. No, with AI in the picture, it's become a top-level, C-suite kind of problem. So let's break down what this actually means and, why it matters so much right now.
You've probably heard this question, right? If you've ever been in a room with legal and IT folks, you know the feeling. The explosion of data, it feels like this giant tidal wave. But here's the thought. What if the problem isn't the size of the wave? What if the problem is that we've been trying to bail out the ocean with a teaspoon? Maybe we're asking the wrong question entirely.
And this is the shift that changes everything. See, the issue isn't the data itself, it's our relationship to it. It's about flipping the script. Moving from this reactive state, where data is a tangled mess that basically manages us through cost and risk, to a proactive one, where we have disciplined, defensible control right from the get-go.
So where's the breakdown? You think it's the expensive, super sophisticated software we use for e-discovery, finding digital evidence for a case. But surprisingly, that's not it. The real failure point, the one that costs millions, happens way, way earlier. It's a fundamentally broken process right at the very beginning. Let's just picture the typical scenario for a second. Before a lawyer even sees a single file, that data has been yanked from a dozen different systems. It's often transferred insecurely, and that chain of custody, that critical log of who touched what and when, it's patchy at best. So what lands on their desk isn't some clean set of evidence. No way. It's a high-risk, disorganized digital landfill. That is the problem we're talking about.
This initial stage, this is what the experts call the first mile of legal discovery. And it is pure chaos. It often happens before outside lawyers are even on the scene, and let me tell you, it's a minefield. This is where the costliest, most damaging errors happen, and they create this massive ripple effect of risk and expense all the way down the line.
And this right here is a perfect map of that first-mile chaos. You get these messy manual exports creating duplicate files all over the place. Then, those files get moved through insecure channels. The chain of custody, basically broken. And the result is that last box, a disorganized mess where junk data is completely mixed in with real evidence. Every single irrelevant file in that box is just wasted time and wasted money.
This quote it hits the nail on the head. Legal discovery should be this strategic search for insight, right? For the needle in the haystack. But because of all this first-mile chaos, it turns into a miserable test of endurance, a brute force march through a mountain of digital garbage. And this doesn't just inflate your legal bills, it completely burns out your best people.
So here's the thing. You don't fix a broken process by just tacking another tool on at the end. You fix it by rebuilding the foundation. This needs a whole new architecture right at the very beginning of the data lifecycle. And this is the core idea behind what's called the Smart Data Stack 3.0.
The most important word on this slide, the single most important word, is before. This is not another review platform. This is all about putting discipline and governance on your data before it ever gets near your outside lawyers or an expensive AI system. It's about solving the problem upstream, where it's cheapest and most effective to do it.
Okay, so how does this actually work? Well, the architecture is built on this really logical three-layer model. It's pretty simple to grasp. Think of it like this. You've got a brain to organize all the information, an action layer for people to actually work with it securely, and an enforcer to govern how AI gets to interact with it.
Now this is where it gets really clever. First, you have the brain. It doesn't actually hold the files themselves. Instead, it creates this rich, searchable index of information about the files. The who, what, when, and where. Next, the action layer gives your legal teams a secure, controlled space to work with all this organized data. And finally, the enforcer acts like a bouncer for your AI. It creates these strict rules that say exactly what data any AI system is allowed to touch, which is absolutely critical for compliance and security. And this is the difference in a nutshell. On the left, you've got the old way, this slow, expensive forklift migration, where you physically copy mountains of data, creating duplicates and risk left and right. But on the right, you have the new way, precision mirroring. You don't move the data. Instead, you create these intelligent, secure pointers to it. You preserve a single source of truth. The result? It's fast, it's efficient, and your data is ready for AI analysis in a tiny fraction of the time.
So, what's the strategic impact of all this? What's the big payoff? Well, when you fix the problem upstream, your data completely transforms. It stops being this ticking time bomb of liability and becomes a powerful asset for legal stuff, for compliance, and especially for adopting AI safely and effectively.
And just get a load of this statistic, it's staggering. For most companies, over 60% of their data is what's known as ROT. That's redundant, obsolete, and trivial. So by identifying and filtering out all this digital junk before it ever hits your expensive legal review platforms, the cost savings are immediate and they are massive.
This brilliantly illustrates a hidden cost that's being called the AI compute tax. The traditional approach, that's the tall bar on the left, it's like asking an AI to boil the entire ocean. You feed it these massive, noisy data sets, and your compute cost just skyrockets. Now look at the smart approach on the right. You feed the AI curated, high-signal data collections, and the cost just plummets. This is what makes powerful AI actually financially viable.
So this is where it all comes together. Your AI becomes legally defensible because you have a perfect audit trail. Your e-discovery costs plummet. Security is baked into the process from the start, not just tacked on at the end. And maybe most importantly, your legal team starts on day one with a clean, organized data set totally ready for strategic work.
You know, this quote is the perfect summary of the entire shift. It's the fundamental difference between being drowned by your data, letting it dictate your costs and risks, and actually mastering it. It's about moving from a defensive crouch to a position of proactive, defensible control.
And that leaves us with this final question to think about for your own organization. When a legal or regulatory issue comes up, is your data a well-organized asset that gives you clarity, or is it an uncontrolled liability that just creates cost, risk, and chaos? The answer to that question is really going to define your future readiness.